California's housing market was never supposed to break. For decades, it was untouchable, a fortress of wealth where prices rose like the tide, slow, steady, unstoppable. The logic was simple. There were always more buyers than homes, more dreams than square footage, more demand than inventory. You couldn't lose money owning California real estate. That was the myth. But myths have expiration dates. And right now, behind the palm trees and glossy marketing brochures, the state is experiencing something it hasn't seen in a generation: a structural correction. Deeper, broader, and more revealing than anyone expected. You can feel it before you even see it. Drive the Pacific Coast Highway, the 5, the 405, the 101, the 80. Look closely. The for sale signs last longer. The price cuts come sooner. The listings return to market a second and third time. The urgency is gone, replaced by hesitation. And underneath that hesitation lies the truth. California is no longer the market where it always goes up. It's becoming the market where fundamentals finally matter again. Not because of a single factor, but because of a collision, an economic pileup decades in the making. Rising interest rates, insurance withdrawals, wildfire, flood, and climate exposure, tech sector layoffs, remote work, reversal, declining population, commercial real estate collapse, local tax burdens, migration to cheaper states, investor retreat, wage stagnation. Each force alone is manageable. Together they, the debt, the costs, the risk, form a pressure the market can absorb. And so, for the first time in modern memory, California real estate is not inflating. It's deflating, not evenly, not everywhere, but violently in the wrong places. This video breaks down 10 cities where the correction isn't a wobble, it's a free fall, not rumor, not clickbait. The data, the listings, the time on market curves, the price reductions, the insurance premiums, they all point to one reality. The California dream now depends heavily on your zip code. Some cities will recover, some won't. Some will reinvent themselves, others will metastasize into slow decline markets where equity evaporates 1 year at a time. So today on Across US 4, we aren't just counting down the most dangerous markets. We're uncovering the structural flaws that turned once unshakable cities into cautionary tales. If you live in one of these places or are planning to buy in one, this is the information you need before you sign anything. Let's begin. 10. Valencia. The suburban. Bet that stopped paying. Valencia was supposed to be the smart play, the controlled alternative to chaotic Los Angeles, a master-planned community in Santa Clarita where the suburbs felt engineered for stability. Clean streets, predictable schools, new shopping districts, and HOA-polished neighborhoods marketed as affordable luxury. During the 2022 frenzy, homes surged deep into the high 700K, 800K range. People fled LA congestion for the promise of space, quiet, and safety. Remote work made it feel rational. Then the tide reversed. Interest rates rose. Commutes returned. Household budgets tightened. At first, sellers expected a small pullback. What they got instead was a buyer strike. Listings that once sold in 48 hours now sit. Price cuts, 20%, 25%, 30% from peak expectations, litter the MLS. Homes fall out of escrow, return relisted, then cut again. The problem isn't that Valencia became undesirable. The problem is that the peak buyer vanished. Families who stretched for 850K homes at 3% interest cannot justify 850K at 7%. Not with rising HOA fees, Mello-Roos taxes, insurance premiums, and childcare costs on top. The income needed to comfortably buy in Valencia jumped dramatically, but wages didn't follow. And here's the silent danger. Local homeowners bought emotionally, but buyers today purchase financially. Valencia is not collapsing. But it is repricing. And once equity starts evaporating in a planned community, the psychology shifts fast. 9. Newport Beach. Prestige. Isn't immune to math. Newport Beach has always been marketed as bulletproof, the jewel of Orange County, a place where wealth insulates you from market cycles, a place where land is scarce and demand eternal. Except even prestige markets eventually hit physics. When interest rates jump, when stock portfolios wobble, when insurance premiums triple, when HOA dues rise, and when the pool of ultra-qualified buyers shrinks, even Newport feels it. Luxury properties aren't correcting. They're being discounted, not because no one wants them, but because buyers now demand value instead of assuming it. Waterfront homes and hilltop properties that once sold instantly now sit for months. Some have cut millions from the original list price. Newport's weakness stems from a simple truth. At the top of the market, buyers compare everything to everything. If a $6 million California home suddenly competes with a $2 million Texas mansion, a $1.8 Arizona estate, a $3 million Florida waterfront home, or even a diversified investment portfolio, some buyers simply decide they don't need the California headache. Insurance alone has become a silent killer. Premiums for coastal exposure have risen dramatically. Some carriers have exited entirely. Others offer reduced coverage at inflated prices. Prestige hasn't died, but prestige no longer overrides cost. 8. Oakland, the Bay Area's affordable alternative, hits reality. Oakland was the pressure valve for San Francisco, the predictable spillover, the place where Bay Area workers went when they were priced out of the peninsula. For years, that dynamic worked perfectly. Then remote work broke the pattern, and crime accelerated it, and insurance, taxes, and rising costs sealed it. Median prices in several Oakland neighborhoods have fallen materially from their peak. Condos especially, once easy sells, now sit for long stretches. 3 structural forces hit Oakland simultaneously. 1. Tech slowdown, fewer high-income buyers. Oakland relies on the Bay Area's prosperity. When tech cuts back, housing demand drops. 2. Monthly costs are no longer ignorable. HOA fees, insurance premiums, and property taxes now directly shape buyer decisions. Oakland's older housing stock requires more maintenance, not less. 3. Perception risk crime concerns, fair or exaggerated, influence demand. For many families, perception is reality. Oakland's story isn't collapse. It's correction sharpened by risk. 7. Riverside, the Inland Empire, correction. Nobody expected. Riverside was supposed to be the bargain play, the last bastion of affordability in Southern California. But affordability depends on one thing: predictable income. And Inland Empire income is tied heavily to logistics, warehousing, distribution, fulfillment. Those sectors exploded during the pandemic. Now automation, oversupply, and slowing demand are cooling them. Riverside homes that hit $570K in 2021 now sell closer to $410K. Some segments have fallen 30%, 50% from peak listing aspirations. The pattern is clear. Inventory is up. Days on market are up. Price cuts are up. Buyers are cautious. Sellers are exhausted. And beneath that is a deeper truth. Many Inland Empire homes were purchased with minimal down payments. When prices drop 20% to 30%, equity disappears instantly. Riverside is a reminder that inland does not mean immune. 6. Laguna Beach, even paradise, has a price. Ceiling. Laguna Beach has always sold an idea: beauty, exclusivity, scarcity. But scarcity only protects prices when the cost of ownership is stable. Today, ownership costs in Laguna are anything but stable. Insurance is the largest landmine. Wildfire exposure, hillside slippage, oceanfront erosion, flooding, storm damage. Multiple carriers have pulled back. Others have raised premiums dramatically. Many homes now rely on the California FAIR plan: expensive, limited, and restrictive. The average luxury buyer may not flinch at the price of the home, but they do flinch at unpredictable recurring costs. Vacant listings and 30%, 40% price cuts on aspirational luxury homes show a simple truth. Buyers now calculate risk into the price. During the boom, emotion priced homes. Now, math prices them. 5. Burbank, Hollywood's bedroom. Community loses its momentum. Burbank was always viewed as stable luxury: studio jobs, walkable neighborhoods, low crime, high demand. But even stability bends under pressure. Prices surged past $1 for modest homes during the mania. By 2025, many segments have repriced downward. Key issues: property taxes based on peak values, insurance premiums for wildfire-prone foothill areas, older homes needing updating, fewer buyers able to stomach 7% mortgages. Many Burbank homes now sit weeks or months before finding buyers. The city isn't collapsing, it's normalizing. But normalizing from inflated prices. 4. Bakersfield, affordability isn't stability. Bakersfield was marketed as the final affordable refuge. But affordability only matters if residents have stable incomes. Bakersfield does not. It relies heavily on oil, energy, agriculture, sectors exposed to regulation, commodity, volatility, climate risk. Median prices hit $400K in 2022. Now they hover around $265K, with some areas experiencing 40% plus cuts. The deeper challenge? Environmental quality. Bakersfield frequently ranks among America's worst cities for air quality, pollution, heat exposure. These factors don't just affect health, they affect long-term demand. Bakersfield is affordable for a reason, and that reason is becoming harder to ignore. 3. Sacramento. The pandemic boomtown hits the wall. Sacramento had a perfect setup during the pandemic: cheaper than the Bay, bigger homes, stable government jobs, remote workers willing to commute occasionally. Then hybrid work returned. Gas prices rose, commutes worsened, insurance premiums increased. Developers who built aggressively during the boom now face softened demand. Entire subdivisions sit half-occupied. Price cuts of 30%, 40% in fringe neighborhoods are becoming normal. Sacramento's correction reveals a core truth: remote work demand was temporary, not structural. 2. San Bernardino. When affordability meets fragility. San Bernardino is one of California's most vulnerable markets. High poverty rate, high crime rate, limited municipal resources, historic bankruptcy, wildfire exposure, low financial buffers among residents. When home prices rose to $410K in 2021, the foundation was not strong enough to support it. By 2025, values have dropped near $260K. The danger in San Bernardino isn't just price decline, it's the combination of economic fragility, rising insurance costs, weak public infrastructure, criminal activity, low income instability. Cheap doesn't mean safe. Cheap doesn't mean stable. Cheap doesn't mean undervalued. Sometimes cheap means trouble. 1. San Francisco. The giant finally falls. San Francisco is the most symbolic collapse in the state. A market that once felt invincible now feels exposed. Median prices were $1.6 billion in 2021. Today they hover near $950K, a 40% decline. But the real collapse is in condos and downtown units, some down 50% or more. The reasons are systemic, aren't just one. Tech layoffs. Tens of thousands of high-income jobs vanished or moved. 2. Remote work decentralization. Employees realized they no longer needed to live near headquarters. 3. Office vacancy crisis. Some towers are 50% empty. Empty towers, empty streets, lower desirability. 4. Rising costs. Taxes, fees, insurance, HOA dues. Everything went up. 5. Quality of life concerns. Retail closure, homelessness, safety perception. San Francisco didn't fall because housing weakened. Housing weakened because the ecosystem around it cracked. This is not a normal correction. This is a structural one. The correction in California isn't random. It isn't temporary. It isn't COVID leftovers. It is structural. A convergence of economic, environmental, and demographic forces that have been building quietly for over a decade. Forces strong enough to break the illusion that California real estate is automatically safe, automatically profitable, automatically upward. To understand this collapse, you must understand the machinery behind it. Let's break it down. 1. The insurance crisis, the new invisible earthquake. For years, Californians worried about wildfires, rising seas, drought, earthquakes. But the hidden threat wasn't the disasters themselves, it was the insurance companies. When major carriers began quietly pulling out of the state or refusing to renew policies, it signaled something bigger. The risk models California was using no longer reflected reality. Premiums surged, Deductibles ballooned, coverage shrank. In many high-risk zones, Laguna Beach, Malibu, the foothills, the forests, some homeowners now pay more for insurance in 1 year than they used to pay in 3. And when insurance costs climb, two things happen. Buyers retreat. They won't take on unpredictable long-term costs. Sellers panic. They realize their home is now more expensive to own, not just to buy. That pressure doesn't cause corrections, it causes resets. Insurance is now one of the most powerful forces pulling California prices down. And unlike interest rates, insurance does not drop quickly, it moves one direction, up. 2. Interest rates, the end of the 0% fantasy. The housing boom was built on a lie that ultra-low rates were normal, sustainable, permanent. They were not. Rates near zero created a level of affordability that was completely artificial, a financial illusion that tricked millions into believing California real estate was still within reach. But when rates rose, every market built on that illusion unraveled. A $900K home at 2.9% feels manageable. The same home at 7% is a financial brick tied to your neck. California's price-to-income ratio was already disconnected from reality. Higher rates exposed that disconnect. This is why entire cities, Riverside, Sacramento, Burbank, Oakland, aren't seeing gradual declines. They're seeing repricing. Not because demand evaporated, because the math no longer works. 3. Population decline, the demand problem. No one wanted to admit California's population is shrinking, not slightly, not temporarily, consistently. People are leaving for lower taxes, cheaper housing, better schools, more predictable insurance, reduced crime, lower cost of living, greater political balance, less chaos, more opportunity. This is the first time in modern history that California has a structural outbound migration problem. And when population shrinks, demand shrinks. When demand shrinks, values fall. This is why some neighborhoods, especially in San Francisco, the East Bay, Sacramento, San Bernardino, are experiencing price drops that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. California didn't lose demand overnight. It lost the foundation of demand gradually over years. And now the correction is simply catching up. Tech layoffs and remote work reversals. The tech sector was California's golden engine. High wages, high stock options, high bonuses, high-priced homes. When tech thrived, California housing skyrocketed. When tech cracks, everything downstream cracks with it. Mass layoffs from 2022 to 2024 wiped out tens of thousands of high-earning buyers. But the bigger problem wasn't layoffs, it was the death of the remote work fantasy. During the boom, tech workers bought homes in Sacramento, Oakland, San Jose, Marin, Santa Cruz. People assumed they could live anywhere and still earn Bay Area salaries. Builders expanded aggressively in suburbs and exurbs. Then companies reversed course. Hybrid became the new normal. Suddenly, the move 2 hours away strategy collapsed. Demand contracted, commutes returned, buyers disappeared, listings multiplied. This is how suburban bubbles burst, quietly, slowly, then all at once. 5. Climate and environmental risk. California's beauty is also its vulnerability. Wildfires, 30-year drought cycles, flood-prone valleys, sea level rise, mudslides, heat waves, air quality issues, earthquake risk. These risks have always existed, but until recently they were economically invisible. No longer. Today, insurance reflects wildfire risk with brutal accuracy. Lenders scrutinize floodplains. Buyers avoid high-risk zip codes altogether. Premiums in some areas equal mortgage payments. Climate mapping impacts long-term valuations. In short, climate risk has finally been priced in. And once a market becomes risk-priced, it rarely becomes cheap again. It becomes discounted, permanently. 6. Cost of living. The silent killer of demand. California's housing problem is not just price. It's everything else. A homeowner in many California cities pays high property taxes, high insurance premiums, high HOA dues, high utilities, high maintenance costs, high local sales taxes, high transportation costs, high regulatory fees. You're not just buying a home, You're buying into a system designed to drain you. In a state where cost of living is among the highest in the nation, the math becomes impossible for the average family. This is why so many younger Californians have stopped trying. They've opted out. You cannot sustain a housing market when the next generation quietly refuses to participate. 7. Investor retreat. During the boom, hedge funds, iBuyers, institutional landlords, IREites, bought homes aggressively. Now, they're gone because investors understand cycles. They understand risk. They understand rising insurance. They understand interest rate exposure. They understand demographic decline. Investors don't get emotional. They get out. And when the fast money exits first, the correction accelerates. Every California city on the top 10 list is experiencing investor retreat. Some, like Bakersfield, Riverside, Sacramento, are experiencing investor capitulation. That shift alone can shave 10 to 20% off valuations. The psychological shift. California is no longer a guarantee. Markets aren't driven by math. They're driven by psychology. For decades, California's psychology was simple. Buy anything now, make money later. That psychology created bidding wars, overvaluation speculation, inflated expectations, emotional purchases. But now, the psychology is changing. For the first time in decades, California buyers are asking questions they never asked before. Will insurance even cover me? Will prices fall more? Will this neighborhood decline? Will my equity evaporate? Will climate risk destroy long-term value? Is this even worth it? Once optimism breaks, it does not return quickly. Markets can recover financially long before they recover psychologically. California is entering that exact phase, and this phase is where the largest losses occur. Not in dollars, but in assumptions. The final conclusion: the California mirage is over. The California housing market did not fail suddenly. It failed gradually and then visibly. For years, the warning signs were ignored. Unsustainable prices, fragile job concentration, climate pressure, outbound migration, regulatory tightening, environmental risk, insurance withdrawal, speculative buying, hyperinflated expectations. Now the bill has arrived. Some cities will recover, some will stagnate, some will decline for a generation. The cities most at risk share 4 traits: high ownership costs, weak local economies, insurance volatility, dependency on outdated assumptions. California is no longer a single market. It is a patchwork of winners and losers, and the gap between them is widening. If you're considering buying in California, you cannot rely on past price charts, Instagram impressions, perfect weather prestige, zip codes, hype history. You must evaluate long-term climate risk insurance, stability, local economic health, migration patterns, job diversity, carrying costs, infrastructure quality, realistic demand. California is not dead, but the California dream, the belief that real estate here always rises, is over. The winners in the next decade will be the people who understand that. Those who chase old narratives will lose. Those who study the new landscape will thrive. And the people who survive this correction will be the ones who look past the palm trees and see the truth. A beautiful place can still be a risky investment. A famous city can still be a fragile market. And a dream can still become a warning. If this deep dive opened your eyes, like the video, share it, and comment the next state, city, or region you want us to analyze. The more we understand the real forces shaping American housing, the better decisions we make. And the fewer people get blindsided by markets built on myths.